Allahu Akbar.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for being here at our session, and we're really excited to share with you about our organization, Green Muslims, and to talk to you about how our deen is green. So first of all, whenever we're looking at how to live Islam, we have to start with the Qur'an. And so the theme for this year's ICNA is the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And of course, he himself, the way that he learned to practice Islam was first and foremost through the revelation of the Qur'an. The Qur'an, as Muslims, is our guide to life, and that's why we're going to start explaining to you Green Muslims and our message first by starting with the Qur'an. So I'm going to share with you this beautiful passage from Surah Rahman. Surah Rahman, of course, is such a beautiful surah from the Qur'an. And so this is from 55, and it's verses 5 through 13. And it's, at Allah's behest, the sun and moon run their courses. Before Allah prostrate themselves the stars and the trees. And the skies has Allah raised high and has devised for all things a measure, so that you might never transgress the measure of what is right. Weigh therefore your deeds with equity, and cut not the measure short. The earth has Allah spread out for all living beings, with fruit and palm trees with sheathed clusters of dates, and grain growing tall on its stalks, and sweet-smelling plants. Which then of your sustainers' blessings would you deny? So this passage is particularly relevant when we're speaking about Green Muslims, and we're speaking about how the deen of Islam is a green deen, meaning that Islam is a deen which has respect and appreciation and gratitude and care towards all of the creation. So you can see that this is saying that Allah is the one who has created everything in existence. Allah has created the sun and the moon, the trees, the stars, the earth, all of the creatures that are upon the face of the earth, all of the human beings. And that Allah is the one that owns everything. And that Allah has given us all of these things as great blessings. And then the verse which repeats, the refrain which repeats throughout all of Surah Rahman is, which then of your sustainers' blessings would you deny? So in the Quran itself, Allah Ta'ala is telling us, I have blessed you with the entire earth to live in and all of the wondrous miracles that are in the earth. So then that means that as human beings, we must appreciate, we must have gratitude for, and we must respect everything that is in creation, which Allah has created and which ultimately belongs to Allah and not to us. So many of you may already be familiar with the term Khalifa, and Khalifa in this context can be interpreted into English as being a steward. So from the Quran, we see that it is human beings which have been established as Khalifa upon the earth. And we see this from multiple verses which are in the Quran, some of which you can see here. From 35, verse 39, Allah it is who has made you, human beings, to inherit the earth. And also from the Quran, chapter 33, verse 72, verily we did offer the trust, the amana, to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refused to bear it because they were afraid. Yet humanity took it up. So if we can almost, go back to before time began and think about this verse 33:72 and what it's saying, that Allah offered the trust of the earth to the heavens and to the land and to the mountains, and they trembled with fear and said, we cannot take it up, we cannot possibly bear it. And you think of how majestic and how strong and how great a mountain is, but the mountain said, no, I cannot bear this trust. But human beings, we made the decision and we made the commitment that we will take up the amana, we will take up the trust, we will take up the responsibility to care for the earth. So this is something to be aware of, that it is human beings, it is our responsibility, which we accepted before we came to this earth, before we came to this life, that we will be the stewards of the earth. And we have to take that responsibility very seriously. We have to reflect upon it, and we have to search within the Qur'an and within the Sunnah what is the best way to fulfill this responsibility that we have towards Allah. So again, being the Khalifa, being the sacred duty which is specific to the human beings. So something to think about as far as being a Khalifa is that when you care for the earth, you're not only caring for, a tree or an animal or for clean air, clean water, but you're also caring for your fellow human beings and for yourself. Because whenever you're taking care of, for trying to do things for the sake of clean air or for clean water, there are other human beings and yourself as well who depend upon these common natural resources. Everyone has to have water to drink in order to survive. Everyone has to have clean air to breathe in order to be healthy. Everyone has to have, healthy soil for the sake of growing food. And on top of it, not just thinking in the short term as far as what we're doing in this life, but also if we are caring for the earth for the sake of Allah, with the intention that we're doing it for the sake of Allah, because we want to fulfill the responsibility of being a Khalifa, then that means we are doing good deeds that will benefit us in the next life as well, inshallah. So again, it's, when you're caring for all of these natural resources, we all depend on the natural resources. And so when you are doing those good deeds, you're doing the good deed not only towards the air itself or the tree or the animals, but simultaneously you're doing the good deed for other human beings. And so you could almost consider that when you are caring for the earth, because you are also caring for human beings, that good deed counts double for you. Because in one action, such as protecting clean water, you are protecting the water itself, which Allah has created, and you are helping other human beings. And so it's a double reward as far as having done a good deed, which helps the creation and helps the other human beings. And finally, as Khalifa, it's important for us to show gratefulness for Allah's blessings and to show respect and gratitude toward Allah and doing these things for the sake of Allah. Something else to consider and reflect upon and to understand is that the entire earth and everything that is in it, even things which we sometimes consider to be inanimate, such as rocks and water, are actually in constant worship of Allah. And we are told about this in the Qur'an. This is from Surah Nur, chapter 24, verse 41. It says, "Are you not aware that it is Allah, whose limitless glory all created things that are in the heavens and on earth extol, even the birds as they spread out their wings? Each knows indeed how to pray to and praise Allah, and Allah has full knowledge of all that they do." So this verse is saying everything that is in creation has its own way of praying to and praising Allah, and that we may not know or we may not understand as human beings what is their form of worshiping Allah, but Allah has full knowledge of everything that they're doing. Allah has full knowledge of the fact that the birds and the mountains and the waters and everything else that is in creation worships Allah through its everyday activities that Allah has established for it to do. And so reflecting upon this is very important for us to recognize that it's not acceptable for us as human beings to impede the worship of other creatures, that we have to allow the other creatures to live a natural life and to exist and to worship Allah in the way that Allah has designed them to worship. So, for example, instead of taking a cow and putting it into a very small pen and feeding it corn, which is not its natural diet, this is corrupting the way of Allah, because Allah has created a cow to live in a large pasture and to eat grass. So that's the way that Allah has designed the cow to worship its creator. And so we as human beings cannot corrupt what Allah has created, because this is a form of thinking that we know better than Allah, thinking that we have a higher intellect. But we need to recognize that Allah is the one who has created everything, and who has created everything in its best way, and that we don't know better than Allah, and we have to allow these creatures to live in the way that Allah has created them to live naturally, so that they can continue their worship. And finally, we want to reflect on the fact that Allah has said that the servants of the Most Merciful are those who walk gently upon the earth. So inshallah, of course, we all want to strive to be the best servants that we can be of Allah. And so in that instance, we should take heed of this verse from the Qur'an, from Surah Al-Furqan 25, verse 63, that the servants of the Most Merciful are those who walk gently upon the earth.